In fact, the most recent example that I could recall of the absurdity of the government claiming to protect the consumer from monopoly was back in 2005. And at that time, two video rental companies, Blockbuster and Hollywood Entertainment, wanted to merge. Now, for those of you who are young and listen to my podcast, I'll tell you, once upon a time, if you wanted to watch a movie, you had to drive down to a video rental store. And in that store, you had all these VHS tapes, and they were arranged in categories. And you went through the aisles and you found the movie that you wanted to rent. And then you got to rent it for a day or two. And you would drive it back to your house. And then you could watch it on your VHS recorder. And after you watched it, you'd have to rewind it, because if you forgot to rewind it, I think they charged you an extra $1. And then you had to drive it back the next day and return the video that you rented. I think it costs like $3 or something, $4 to rent it. And of course, if you didn't bring it back on time, you had to pay a late penalty, right? So you'd have to pay, another day. And sometimes you'd get busy and you'd forget to do it. And then, you could end up paying $8, $10, right? Just to go and rent one movie. So this is what we had to do. And so in 2005, the business was starting to come under pressure and the companies weren't doing well. And so in order to kind of maintain viability, Blockbuster wanted to merge with Hollywood Entertainment because, they competed with each other. A lot of their video rental outlets were near each other. And hey, maybe if we consolidate, we can close down some stores, we can get some economies of scale, and we could be more competitive in this industry. Well, the U.S. government prevented this merger. They blocked it because they filed an antitrust case, and they claimed that if this merger were to go through, that the new company would dominate better than 50% of the video rental market. And they can then gouge the consumer. They could charge too much money, and it would get really expensive to rent videos if the U.S. government allowed this merger to happen. Now think about the absurdity of the U.S. government in 2005 worried about companies having monopoly on home video rental, when within a few years, nobody was renting videos for home, right? Because what the U.S. government didn't seem to understand or appreciate was that in 1997, a new company was born by the name of Netflix, right? And the government didn't seem to care about Netflix because it was a very small player at the time, but it was growing in market share, and it was putting a lot of pressure at the time on Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Entertainment. And in 2005, both of these companies were in competition and losing business to Netflix. Why? Well, because Netflix had a unique business model at that time, which was you picked out a movie and then they mailed it to you, right? They would mail you the movie, and with a return envelope, it was free. And then after you watched it, you put it back in the envelope and you sent it back to Netflix. So you didn't actually have to drive to the video rental store, and you didn't have to worry about rewinding it, or you didn't have to worry about not returning it on time and getting hit with a late penalty. You watched it, dropped it in a mailbox, very simple. And this was competing with both Blockbuster and Hollywood Entertainment in 2005 when the U.S. government stopped this merger. Now, of course, I think 2 years later in 2007, that's when Netflix started streaming, which, of course, if Netflix hadn't put these companies out of business with its prior model, the minute it just started streaming and you no longer even had to use the mail, you just log on to your TV and watch whatever you wanted, streaming would have been the nail in the coffin of all of these home video rentals. It was just 2 years away from 2005, and the U.S. government couldn't see that. This is how incompetent, what a waste of taxpayer money to try to stop this merger. They should have just let it happen. Look, the government has no foresight. They wanted to break up General Motors in the 1950s because they claimed that it had a monopoly on cars. Think about that nonsense. General Motors had a monopoly. Go out, look at all the cars on the street. How many of them are made by GM? Complete nonsense. GM had plenty of competition in the United States. And of course, what the U.S. government didn't even appreciate at the time was how much competition eventually General Motors was going to have from Japan, from Germany, from all over the world.